Well, on today's show, we're going to do something a little bit different for us here at the Wood Whisperer. I'm in my new house in Missouri. I got a built-in here that I don't love, and I'm going to do a little bit of surgery to make it more usable.
The Wood Whisperer is sponsored by Typebond.
So what I mean by usable is I need the opening to be a little bit bigger. Ideally, I would just make a whole new built-in. The paint is fine. A lot of people love paint, nothing wrong with that, but I would really like to see a good quality natural wood built-in here, and I just don't have the time or the shop right now to do it. I actually don't have a shop. So of course, this is a great time to look around the house. We just moved in. There's tons of projects to keep me busy, including something fairly simple like this. So when I look at this opening, I'm trying to figure out, is there a way I can open it up a little bit without actually taking the whole thing apart and creating more work than is necessary? So let's take a look. What I'm thinking I want to do is remove these two partitions, and then of course the adjustable shelves will go with it. If we remove those, we have to figure out, can this shelf sustain itself? Can it be supported even if these partitions are gone? Now, in a lot of cases, it may not. It might sag in the middle, but this is the thing that's saving us. The face frame is constructed in a way that the trim of the shelf is connected to this piece of trim up here. And between that and the way that this shelf is anchored to the back, I actually think we're gonna have no problem removing these partitions and just opening this wide. So I think that's gonna be the plan of attack here. Now this bottom portion, we're just gonna leave that alone. We'll of course have some cleanup and some paint matching to do, but you can probably see why I'd like to do something better. These are just, you know, really low-end hinges, particle board shelves in here, and I think, you know, in the future I'll be able to build something a little bit more appropriate for me and my family, but for now, we just need to do something that will get us by for a while. Now, there are a couple of key ingredients to this project working out, and I'm at a point right now with so many house projects that if I get into something that takes me 4 or 5 days, Nicole's not going to be very happy with me because I've got so many other things to do. This really has to be a 1 or 2 day project. So to make that as successful as possible, I'm just thinking about what I need. Number one, I'm going to need a tool to cut through this. We'll talk about that in a second. Then I'm going to need some material to probably do a little bit of a fill and a sand back to smooth the surface. And then maybe the most important thing at this point is I need paint that matches. So I'm going to go into my basement and hopefully find a can of paint from the previous owner that matches this. If I didn't have that, once I start to cut these partitions out, I would just take a chunk over to the home store or Sherwin-Williams or whatever, get a paint match and get that color and sheen match to get as close as possible. Unless you just want to repaint the whole thing, that's probably the nuclear option. All right, so let's talk about the tool that's going to make all of this possible, the oscillating multi-tool.
The oscillating multi-tool has a fairly recent history. While pretty much all major power tool brands make one these days, that wasn't always the case. In fact, it wasn't until 2009 when Fine lost the patent to the oscillating mechanism that we began to see competitors hit the market. Prior to that, Fine was the only game in town dating back to the 80s and 90s with their Delta Sander and Multi-Master tool, which did feature a number of cutters and sanding heads. And to this day, the Multi-Master is still seen by many as the standard to beat in this category.
So because of the unique shape of the multi-tool, the way the blade is located, we can do a nice flush cut, and that's going to be absolutely essential here. We're going to try not to dig down too deep. I'd rather have the material sit a little bit above the surface, and then we can just kind of sand it down and smooth it. But either way, you can kind of just go flat on the surface, and if you have a wider blade, that's a good idea for something like this. So we'll see how it goes. But I gotta tell you, the thing that I don't love about the multi-tool is the sound. It is absolutely in my top 5 most annoying tool sounds in the world. It shares that honor with a few other tools, namely the lunchbox planer, the hammer drill, and Matt Cremona. All right, so I'm going to switch out to this wider blade, empty everything off the shelves, of course, and then get to cutting.
Grogu.
Be happy.
Check this out. And look, no judgment. You know, if you skip a spot, you skip a spot. But this actually is one of my pet peeves about shelf pinholes. People like to put this Swiss cheese action all the way up and down, and the reality is most people will find a spot for a shelf and never move it again. So if you have the option to do this and you're not buying these pre-milled, just give yourself like 2 or 3 locations, because you'll usually find a spot and leave it there. Obviously the previous owner knew exactly where they wanted their shelves to be and didn't think it would be important to paint the case on the inside. Gotta expect a few bugs. Now, honestly, I don't know what I'm in for in terms of how this was constructed. My guess is we have some sort of joinery, whether it's nails or a dado, something like that, where this vertical piece goes into this top shelf. So I think we're gonna have to do some cutting there. On this back panel, the way that feels and sounds, I think that's just a 1/4 inch back panel. Chances are there's not a whole lot holding this vertical partition to the back panel. So I think what I'm going to try to do is release it at the top and bottom first and just see what happens. I might be able to just kind of wedge it this way, and if there's a couple of brad nails or something, we might not have to do any cutting back there. And if I don't have to hit a nail, that would be ideal. We'll see how it goes though. So I think just releasing the top and bottom first and then going from there. Now, while I was making the cuts, you might have noticed there's points where I started to feel a little more resistance and a change in tone of the sound of the cutting, and I was pretty sure I was hitting metal. So I backed off. I mean, if you force your way through that with a wood cutting blade, you're just gonna kill those teeth. So I backed off, I saw that there were 2 of them in there, and I figured there might be a screw or something involved. So when I looked in under here, sure enough, I saw some screw heads, which would have been smart of me to check ahead of time. But again, not knowing how it was constructed, I didn't even think to check down there. I'm a dummy. So I'm gonna pull some of these games out of here so we can get to those screws and remove them. And thankfully I didn't damage the blade. They're not that much. Can't find my right angle drill, so we're going manual.
Get in there.
Yeah, little drywall screw.
All right, next. Where'd you go, big boy?
There we go. This should probably be loose now. Ish. Now up here, I'm gonna have to reshape this edge. So I'm gonna be pretty careful to cut through, leave myself probably a little extra material. I really don't wanna cut in more because otherwise I'll have to use filler. So I'm just gonna make a careful cut and try to go nice and straight across. All right, and like I said, hopefully a little wiggle action and we'll be able to get this guy out of there. Or, you know what? Hammer, don't hurt him. Just a little tappy tap. And that's just taking the face frame off, so that's not doing what I wanted it to do. So I am gonna just do a little score line along the back because part of it too is there's paint involved here that might be holding things together. So let's see what happens. All right, so we're getting close, but unfortunately, I think there are more screws involved. I'm pretty sure through the back panel, that's how they secured this partition at the back, is with a couple of screws, because I'm having that same sort of sound change, and I can just tell that it's not wood anymore. Also, when I flex on this and I kind of move this around, I can feel it pulling the back panel, and I don't want to destroy the back panel at this point. So I need something that can cut screws. Well, it's like Grandmom used to say, it's nothing another tool can't solve. She never said that, but I kind of wish she did, because that would be pretty cool. Okay, we made it. All right, so while I definitely expected to tear this up a little bit, what I did not expect was to see that they used that partition as the point where they would join 2 back panel pieces together from 2 smaller pieces. So we have this gap between them. The drywall is behind here. This is not attached to the drywall, it's just kind of floating with a little bit of space there. So I think really, most of this is going to be covered by the TV anyway, and it is a temporary solution. I'm probably just going to get just a little bit of trim and just run a small little piece of trim down here to cover this, kind of secure it, make it a little bit more stable, and we're going to be painting over it anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much, but yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer because it just makes more work for me. All right, so now I'll just do that same exact process to take this other partition down. Interesting. Only one screw.
What's going on?
Rainbow.
The thing about taking a trip to the big box store in Missouri is that it's a whole ordeal. I'm used to a 3-minute drive to Home Depot and Lowe's. Now, it's about 20 minutes. So looking through the various pieces of trim, I found something that would work, and then I found something that would work even better because it's a bit wider.
So I picked up some of this square molding here, and I'm going to use that as a filler. I gave this a lot of thought, and I'm looking back here and seeing that this back panel isn't connected at all to this bottom piece. So it basically was a top half and a bottom half installation. And this molding is actually one of the things that's holding everything in place. So I considered completely removing the molding, but then I would have this gap all the way across. And on something that's non-critical, temporary, and not going to be seen, I'm just going to cut this guy down, put a little insert in there, try to shape it so it looks, like a decent match, and see if we can't just fill it up. And then I can take the vertical molding on the back and butt it up against that. And I'm extremely limited in terms of like what I can find in the garage, so I'm just kind of see a saw, grab it and go. See a hand plane, grab it and go. So let's see if we can't get this guy cut here. All right, so the only glue I could find was this giant gallon of Speed Set. Now, the good thing is Speed Set is exactly what I want. I want something that's going to dry fast. Just didn't necessarily need the gallon size, but here we go. Oh, jeez. I'm an idiot. I knew that was full, and I tipped it way too far, like a big dummy. All right, well, some projects expose my weaknesses more than others. That's how you do it. Get up in there. Of course, I'm going to do this on the other side, too. And by the way, this one, I cut it just a little bit oversized, and I just was able to find some sheets of sandpaper. It's very easy to just kind of rub them on there to size them for a nice perfect fit. Let me get some of my globs of glue here. All right, so while these are drying, there's no reason why I can't cut the 3-inch stock to the length in here. I just don't take my measurement from that actual spot. I'm going to take it just a little bit over from this trim piece down to that trim piece. 35 1/4. All right, and I don't expect this to be perfect, but hopefully I don't have to trim it anymore. What do you want? A little bit long. I mean, we could probably make it work. All right, so if it's a little bit long, we can probably make some kind of a makeshift shooting board here just to peel a little bit off the edge. So I'll put these down to raise the work up. Use this square piece as my backer, and obviously this is not going to work as well as a true shooting board, but maybe it'll work a little bit, and see if we can't take a little bit off of here. That's better. Okay, that's a winner. All right, so once I feel like this is dry enough to take a little bit of pressure and abuse, I'm going to use my hand plane and a sharp chisel and try to shape it as best I can. Wish I had a smaller plane or, something like a shoulder plane, but, it is what it is. We'll make it work. All right, at a point, there's nothing left to do but a little bit of sanding. Okay, now I'm just going to use some thick CA glue on this piece to get it to stick on the back panel there. You know, normally I would be a little bit more focused on using a better adhesive, but again, the temporary nature of all this is kind of driving a lot of these decisions. The other thing is I can't get a lot of pressure on here because this back panel still has some flex to it. So I want something that's just going to grab and hold on even if there's not a lot of pressure. And hold it on here for about a minute. All right, so remember these areas where the stiles were, the front part of the face frame connected? Got to clean those up and make it look like it goes all the way across. A plane should help with that. This is an exercise in doing everything at a weird angle. It's one of the reasons why I have so much respect for installers, people who do built-ins, because everything is at a weird angle and they get the job done. So it's actually starting to get dark outside, and hopefully it doesn't kill the video quality here, but we'll do what we can do, and I want to at least get this thing kind of sanded and ready for paint tonight. So next thing we need to do is just that. I got to get the random orbit sander if I could find one, and just kind of smooth the surface. And as I'm doing this, I'm looking for any major divots or anything where I could probably use some wood filler just to smooth it out. In some cases here, even though I dug in a little bit with that multi-tool, I don't think I removed a whole lot of material, so that after sanding, if it feels smooth, then I don't need to fill it. So let's see what happens. Alright, so I've never actually used this filler before, Minwax, but hopefully it dries nice and hard. It's definitely lighter feeling. And let that set up.
So unfortunately, I lost the painting footage. Now it's just painting, but I did have my son helping me, so it was kind of fun and I'm a bit bummed about it. But after Mateo left, I finished the job and I do have a recreation of the experience. It looks something like this. Totally accurate, down to the shaved chest hair stubble. Anyway, I was able to find matching paint in the basement, so here are the results. All right, so it's the next day. The paint has had a decent amount of time to cure. Probably could use a little bit more, but I'm likely going to rush it and put the TV in there anyway. I'm super happy with the way this happy accident turned out. I wasn't expecting to have to cover up something like that. I thought it was just going to be a flat back. But given the style of the piece, putting these stiles in there kind of fits the theme. I think it actually looks pretty darn good, even though most of it's going to be covered with a TV. The other thing is this cord. Now again, that will be covered with the TV, and when I do a full built-in in here, I'm going to have some allowance for cords to be able to travel up and down. I've got my internet stuff up here, so my wireless router and everything is up there, and there's no power up there, so I have to get the power from the cabinet below. It's really unavoidable. I could always do some kind of a wire hide if it really bothers me, but I think at this stage, I'm probably just going to live with it. The only thing left to do now is to get a TV ready, pop that sucker in here. And one thing I will mention is you may have looked at this design and thought it looked better before because I actually took detail away, right? But for me personally, the TV is the focal point in this particular room, and I want the biggest TV I could possibly fit in here, and those little cubbies weren't really doing a whole lot for me. So I'm not saying this is better, I'm just saying this works better for us.
Why do we need such a big TV?
It's for the kids.
Why is the TV so big?
Why is it so big?
Like I said, totally for the kids. I can't wait until they go to bed so that I can actually use it. Thanks for watching.
Abby? Abby? Why don't you go lay down? Oh God, this is awful. Jeez. That's ridiculous. What am I doing? do on with my life.
Why is the TV so big?
No, you have to say it clearly. That was your line.
No!
Just walk in and say it.
Okay. Wait, how do I edit that out?
Hey, Ava. Good job. Thank you.